Thank you.
No problem. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be presenting tonight, and thank you for taking an interest in Friends of Harbors, Beaches, and Parks work. As you heard, my name is Melanie Schlotterbeck, and I'm a consultant for Friends of Harbors, Beaches, and Parks, which is a countywide nonprofit organization. So tonight I have 5 topics to cover, and we'll start with the Green Vision Project. Friends of Harbors, Beaches, and Parks, or FHBP as we call ourselves, in short, works to protect the natural lands, waterways, and beaches in Orange County. And one of the projects we work on is called the Green Vision Project. This project seeks to find and create funding for parks, water quality, and open spaces in Orange County. Since 2005, we've been allocating significant resources to the program, and we've seen quite a few successes. Our efforts have united over 80 conservation organizations in the county. All of these organizations have their own mission, from cultural resource protection to improving water quality to connecting people of faith to the environment. And all of these groups eventually aligned interests to support the Green Vision Project. To learn about issues, tools, and strategies, on occasion, FHBP hosts workshops for its coalition members. One of the first activities of the Green Vision Project was the mapping of conservation target lands in Orange County. The map lays out the knowledge and vision of the coalition members, and as you would guess, the green areas have some level of protection, while the properties in red are in active conservation mode, which means there's a threat to the status of the land, like a residential development is proposed. And orange properties indicate that no active threat exists, but that could always change. The map is updated annually to show the status of existing and/or potential conservation projects. And in 2012, we finished a parcel level version of the map to ensure accuracy and credibility. And at the end of every section here, I'm going to relay why this work matters. So the Green Vision Project, map, and coalition are critical to Orange County because we've united the voice of conservation. We've set up an inventory for protected and threatened lands and serve as an umbrella group for the big issues that affect everyone. So now that you have some background on the Green Vision Project, let me tell you about our legacy work on the Orange County Transportation Authority, or OCTA's renewed Measure M. In 1990, about 55% of voters approved a 20-year 1/2 cent sales tax measure that funded $3.1 billion in transportation improvements. Funding was directed into 3 categories: freeways, streets and roads, and transit. And it took 3 times at the ballot box before voters actually approved it. Fast forward to 2005. Because of the troubles passing Measure M1, OCTA allocated an extra 6 years to get the renewal M2 passed. The duration of the measure, the percentage of support from voters, and the amount of funding all increased. M2 had the exact same program allocations as M1, but this measure now required 2/3 of a vote to pass. So let's look at how mitigation has historically been done. This is a clip of OCTA's freeway project list. Mitigation is normally 5 to 8% of the capital expenditures. So let's look at Project A on the I-5 freeway as an example. 5 to 8% of this project would be $23 to about $38 million for environmental actions. This includes the California Environmental Quality Act compliance, permitting with various agencies, and completing mitigation needs, which offset the project impacts. This is a piecemeal approach. It was how mitigation had historically been calculated and implemented on a project-by-project basis. Further, that mitigation was not as thoughtful or strategic as it could have been, and it was normally done along the sides of freeways. No support could be given from the environmental community if M2's project list included funding for the 241 toll road extension through popular San Onofre State Beach, a tunnel through the Cleveland National Forest connecting Riverside County to Orange County, or an extension of the 57 freeway over the Santa Ana River to Pacific Coast Highway. Now, OCTA had already done polling on all of these projects and felt they were too controversial to include in the measure. So this sealed the deal and negotiations began. What the environmental community envisioned was looking at the entire freeway program budget instead of individual freeway projects. This is comprehensive or programmatic approach. This meant that $243 million to about $390 million was available to fund advanced mitigation. What environmental groups hoped for was that the measure pooled project impacts and pooled the money to mitigate the impacts so that larger scale mitigation was not just possible, but was required. And no new money was being requested. So that was a huge selling point for OCTA. Programmatic mitigation goes above and beyond any one particular species. It's about ecosystem sustainability and all of the natural resource values in those ecosystems. So OCTA committed to a minimum of 5% or $243.5 million of the freeway program revenues for advanced mitigation. These funds can be used three ways: acquisition, restoration, and management. The measure also requires that freeway projects impacting existing wildlife corridors must be funded separately. Language was also inserted into the measure to ensure that there was a net environmental benefit between the transportation projects and the mitigation program. And there was a 12-member committee that would be established to oversee this. Through FHBP, a coalition of more than 30 conservation and community groups, including Laguna Canyon Conservancy, were aligned to support M2. It was the first time in Orange County history that environmentalists supported a transportation measure. OCTA board member and Mission Viejo council member Brian Goodell is currently the chair. And as you heard, I was elected the vice chair at the very first meeting in 2007. I have remained in that role ever since, and I represent the entire M2 coalition. The committee also has representatives from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Caltrans, Army Corps of Engineers, and the public, to name a few. The committee advances the program, determines where funds are spent, what the priorities are, and how best to manage and protect the mitigation sites. Since the launch of the program, 1,300 acres have been protected as 7 preserves spread throughout the county. Land is protected in Trabuco Canyon, Silverado Canyon, Brea, and Laguna Beach. Each location was protected for its habitat, plant life, connectivity value, as well as its species, especially those that are sensitive, threatened, or endangered. Also, since the launch of the program, 350 acres have been funded for restoration in 12 locations throughout Orange County. Presently, OCTA is working to fund the non-wasting endowment, finalize the fire management plans, establish long-term managers, and monitor the restoration work. So why does this Measure M Advanced Mitigation Program matter? Measure M's Advanced Mitigation Program is important because FHBP and its partners created a funding source for conservation. We aligned our interests with non-traditional partners, and it allowed preservation of green vision mapped properties, which allows other properties to rise to the top of the list for conservation. We've also set up an award-winning and replicable model for others to use. Next, I'll share how FHBP has engaged with the Southern California Association of Governments. SCAG, as it's called for short, is a regional planning agency that covers 6 Southern California counties. To obtain federal transportation funding, SCAG is required to create a regional transportation plan that documents where housing will go and where roadway infrastructure will go or expand. This document gets updated and adopted by SCAG's regional council every 4 years. SCAG just kicked off the planning effort for 2024's regional transportation plan, and this will be FHBP's 4th engagement on a regional transportation plan. So the regional transportation plan for SCAG is succinctly called Connect SoCal, and it outlines 10 priorities. 3 of those priorities have environmental goals, including 5, 6, and 10, which focus on greenhouse gas emissions, healthy and equitable communities, and land conservation and restoration. Technical appendices justified Connect SoCal's goals and policy positions. So FHBP paid particular attention to the natural and farmlands appendix. Because of the innovative positions and commitments in these planning documents, we built a 6 county-wide coalition of nearly 50 organizations to support the policies. The natural and farmlands conservation appendix include 5 key commitments. Engage with stakeholders, that's us. Develop a green print, like the Green Vision Map. Encourage advanced mitigation, like the OCTA program. Align with funding opportunities, such as conservation dollars, and incentivize cross-county partnerships. This allows for opportunities that exist at the county lines not to be missed. These commitments are why FHBP built the coalition, provided comment letters, and supportive testimony. There's also a Sustainable Communities Strategy document, and this outlines ways to reduce vehicle miles traveled. The creation of a Sustainable Communities Strategy is required due to legislation called SB 375, and that bill aims to reduce vehicle miles traveled from passenger vehicles and light-duty trucks. Removing cars and trucks from roads simultaneously reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Some of the strategies to reduce vehicle miles travel include focusing growth near transit centers, providing diverse housing options, leveraging technology, implementing sustainable policy, promoting a green region, and reducing emissions. One of the commitments made through the Environmental Impact Report was a mitigation measure that required the creation of a Regional Advanced Mitigation Program, or a RAMP. This is what the OCTA Mitigation Program is. It's a RAMP. The goal is to have all of the transportation projects in the plan be mitigated comprehensively. All of it is bundled together in a nice, neat package, and both the project impacts and mitigation are bundled. Advanced mitigation streamlines the process for transportation agencies, saves money on the project and from staffing costs, and makes more thoughtful and strategic, as well as larger investments in conservation. The technical appendix on financing this RAMP plan anticipates $1 billion with a B for mitigating these transportation projects in the regional transportation plan. SCAG committed in its environmental documents to create a tool that helps inform the RAMP previously described, and that's called the SoCal Green Print. This image is from the Bay Area Green Print, and it's the dashboard of different segments of information, such as overview, biodiversity and habitat, agriculture, water, carbon and air quality, and recreation. The Nature Conservancy developed this informative tool and was hired to do a green print for SCAG as well. This green print will take multiple data layers from wildfire perimeters to equity to agriculture and job centers, general plans to parks and more. The green print would filter this information into a master database or a library of files, and then it allows the audience to create informational digital maps. Unfortunately, there's considerable pushback from the Building Industry Association and others. The first concern is that the green print will be weaponized to stop housing. But let's be honest, that's just a talking point because the baseline data already exists in a public forum. And the Green Vision Map was the baseline inventory for the OCTA Advanced Mitigation Program. Because opponents don't understand or say they don't understand the green print, they also choose not to understand the SCAG ramp. And you can see why we'd be upset if SCAG backs out of both of these. We believe housing and conservation can coexist. So why does this matter? Well, the ramp matters because SCAG committed to it. It's in its environmental documents and its natural lands appendix. SCAG staff has been slowly creating the natural lands program since 2009. The SoCal green print is more important in this context because it is also a mitigation measure and it informs the ramp. It too has been a decade in the making. It's simply a mapping tool. Up next is one of our current projects, the Park Legacy Map, which documents the history behind the regional and wilderness parks in the Orange County Parks system. So we've focused our effort on 15 regional parks and 7 wilderness parks. What we're specifically looking for are documents that substantiate the land's protection, restrictions, and decisions. This includes things like resolutions, lease agreements, and more. So I'm going to show you an example of the process I go through for each park. So let's look at Carbon Canyon Regional Park. It's 124 acres in the city of Brea. It's managed by OC Parks. There's a beautiful lake, multiple hiking, biking, and equestrian trails, along with volleyball courts, tennis courts. Sorry, I'm going to pause while I let Harry Huggins in. We want to make sure Harry gets to have this information. They've got playground equipment and picnic areas. So our park legacy map uses a variety of data, and this image shows that the OC Parks data has these park boundaries. So this is the purpley pink outline of Carbon Canyon Regional Park. Next, we add the parcel level data to the map. FHBP purchased this data for the Green Vision map. This is what you see in yellow on the map on the right. The first thing we notice is that the parcels don't always line up correctly with the park boundary. So we'll focus on this later. Then I use the OC Public Works database, which is accessed via the web, to find the park facility. Carbon Canyon Park is facility PR03A. And I'm specifically looking for park parcels and easements in this search. There's only one parcel, 101, and that is what makes up Carbon Canyon Regional Park. Comparing the visual of the original map, I also noticed that there are some areas that don't include coverage by this park facility. These omissions are now shown in red. So I've made a note of this in my tracking spreadsheet. Still on the Public Works website, I'm going to click the Identify option in the legend. This opens up a window of documents that tracks the parcel. So as this page shows, there's only one document associated with this one parcel. Carbon Canyon was super easy to map because it only includes one large parcel. I have had some parks that have over 250 parcels each, and sometimes those parcels each have multiple documents. After downloading the document, I find that Parcel 101 has a lease agreement between the Secretary of the Army, read the Army Corps of Engineers, and the county. and it began in April of 1976 and runs a 50-year term until 2026. There are use restrictions from the Army Corps of Engineers. It's recreational. This means the county cannot operate incompatible uses on this property due to the lease restrictions. So in other words, they can't use it for housing or commercial, shopping centers, etc. Now, in a Word document with a row for each parcel, I track the information from the OC Public Works database with the Green Vision Map database. And at the bottom of this are a list of questions and notes that I encounter that I need to keep for the future. So remember those excluded areas we found in Carbon Canyon Park. I'm comparing it to the Public Works database with the OC Parks boundary layer. Tracking these errors means I need to now report the discrepancies to OC Parks. And if OC Parks does not know why they're left out of the OC Public Works database, I now need to inform Public Works of the possible error. You can see why this is a long process. The last step in this process is to align the parcels in the Green Vision Map with the county's parcels and known easements. This is tracked in both GIS with layers and the Word document. So why does this research matter? This information matters for situations like the one in Upper Newport Bay. A neighbor fenced in property owned by OC Parks and then asked to purchase the land from the county. OC Parks went through a surplus land act process to dispose of the acreage. It was 1/3 of an acre. The resident then used their own appraiser to value the parkland, coming in at $13,000 for bayfront property. The county accepted the appraisal, and through our research in the Park Legacy Map effort, we found that the land had not only been dedicated to the county through the state and federal conservation planning processes, in other words, it was mitigation for development, but it also had a conservation easement on it from the city, with the city of Newport Beach and the State Coastal Conservancy. And it was part of the public trust because it was considered tidelands. So all of this information allowed informed decisions to be made by residents, spearheaded by Susan Skinner, to petition the county to stop the Surplus Land Act sale. 200 signatures are required to stop the Surplus Land Act disposition, and more than 1,000 were obtained. So thanks to this effort, Supervisor Katrina Foley, especially, the land still remains in park status. My last segment is on the 30 by 30 campaign. About 15 months ago, Governor Newsom issued an executive order to protect 30% of California's lands and coastal waters by 2030. So hence the name 30 by 30. President Biden has done the same at a national level, and this is also taking off internationally. Based on how lands were classified as protected, they need durable or permanent protected status. It appears that as of this year, we've already protected 24% of lands and 16% of coastal waters. We need 6% and 14% respectively. What better resource than the Green Vision Map to show the state we already know what needs to be purchased? So FHBP drafted comments on the potential acquisition sites and their alignment with state documents, and then built a coalition around it, again, of which Laguna Canyon Conservancy was a part. We had 30 conservation and community groups sign on to our coalition letter, which was sent last summer to the California Natural Resources Agency. We advocated for potential conservation transactions in and around Orange County. In partnership with Hills for Everyone, founders of Chino Hills State Park, they re-reviewed the Green Vision Map and organized the county into sections: coastal, urban, Puente Chino Hills, Santa Ana River, and foothills. They provided a detailed review of the lands, comparing the geography of the aerial images in Google, and eliminated properties from the map that no longer met the Green Vision map guidelines. So now the information in the Green Vision map is updated to the parcel level as of summer 2021 because of Hills for Everyone. This sample map shows the coastal section of the area designated as Southern Central. 11 properties have been identified as potential conservation sites. The property legend has each of the 11 parcels, and it includes the assessor parcel number and the acreage. All in all, there were 275 properties identified for conservation, totaling over 30,000 acres in and around Orange County. This means locally, we are ready to receive and spend conservation funding related to the 30 by 30 campaign. Clearly, there is more conservation work we can do locally. In December, the Natural Resources Agency released the Pathways to 30 by 30 document, which outlines strategies on how the state could achieve its lofty goals. There are a number of actions and strategies included that will help achieve success. However, I will note that unless 30 by 30 is funded, this is just a pipe dream and it won't ever turn into reality. Thankfully, Governor Newsom is using portions of the state's surplus to invest considerable funds in conservation, but more is needed. Estimates to achieve 30 by 30 are $1 billion a year for 10 years. In response to the Pathways to 30 by 30 document, FHBP drafted comments on behalf of the Green Vision Coalition, and we again asked organizations to sign on to support the comments and recommendations. Why does this matter? Well, engagement in 30 by 30 matters because there is more land in need of protection to fill in the gaps, complete the wildlife corridors, and protect sensitive lands and species. The Green Vision map is not yet complete. And on the right, I've listed just a few of the properties identified in need of protection. So there is more work to do. The Green Vision map is at the center of our work. You can see how the Green Vision project and map easily led to the idea for an advanced mitigation program with OCTA. And because of the success with OCTA, we hope to implement it across all of Southern California through our work with SCAG. Since FHBP formed after the county bankruptcy in 1997, the regional park system is of critical importance to us. We have a long time and ongoing participation that demonstrates our interest in ensuring park protections remain intact and in perpetuity. This is how the park legacy map fits into this picture. And finally, in an attempt to complete the Green Vision map, when opportunities for conservation or funding for acquisition is available, we want to be involved. So the 30 by 30 campaign is a perfect fit for completing our wish list and your wish list. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, please reach out to greenvision@fhbp.org. I want to thank you for being a partner. Laguna Canyon Conservancy is always one of the first to respond to our letter requests. And this is an important presentation tonight, give an update on what we're doing. Last but not least, if anyone wants to subscribe to FHBP's e-newsletter, you can use the QR code on the right. You simply hold your cell phone up to the screen, open the photo app. The photo should allow you to click on our website when it recognizes the QR code. So at this point, I will stop and answer any questions folks may have.
Well, thank you, Melanie. I'm going to give you a moment to catch your breath. And I also, while you're doing that, maybe having a sip of water, we have a couple of questions. If anybody has some questions, to please put them in chat and we will get them answered. I want to just let everybody know we've received communication this past month from FHBP, and they are doing such an extraordinary job. Building coalitions is so important. Working together is so important. We try and lend our support whenever possible. If it helps, we're glad. There's also another way people can help, and the Laguna Canyon Conservancy Board of Directors tonight are voting to support the Green Vision and M2 coalitions by donating online to fhbp.org/donate, and I'll put that in chat, or you can send a check. We really appreciate Melanie's time, and I think she does such a good job. Her heart is in her job, and I think if we can support the coalition, we should do in any way possible. So I'm going to put that in chat while Melanie's maybe answering the first question, which she touched on. And one of our questions is, the state of California has a budget surplus, which you mentioned. Is there any possibility of a new statewide environmental bond measure to protect open space and wildlife that you're aware of?
So my understanding is no. While there's a surplus, folks aren't really interested in taxing themselves. And so if that's going to happen, it'll be after the 3 years of allocations related to the surplus have been allocated or spent.
Okay. We have, as you know, we have a concern about the genetic health of the wildlife and open space areas such as Crystal Cove State Park, Laguna Coast Wilderness Park, and Aliso and Wood Canyons Wilderness Park. So are you aware of the genetic health threat that we have in those areas? Yes. Or is your organization?
Absolutely. We're aware, and I think that's I think my mom is still on this line. Hi, Mom. She had the vision and foresight with state parks to understand the requirements related to connecting our open space lands together. So one of the first, if not the first, wildlife corridor protected in the state of California, where state parks realigned its core goals for wildlife corridors, was at Chino Hill State Park. So the same effort is being employed elsewhere. Everyone's heard of Liberty Canyon or the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Corridor up on the 101. We've got the Coast to Cleveland connection here in Orange County. There's a lot of places that need it. And the easiest explanation for why it's important is if you look at Amish populations, you've got a very small population of potential mates. And so when you date or marry your cousins and reproduce, there are bound to be genetic consequences. And it's the same thing for wildlife.
Okay. Well, might Measure S or other highway funds be used to help build an effective animal corridor to connect our coastal wilderness areas with the much larger Cleveland National Forest?
I believe that's a Measure M question. I don't know Measure S, but I'll assume it was the one I was speaking about. And so, as I mentioned, if there are impacted wildlife corridors in the project areas, they are required to be funded outside of our mitigation program because they exist on the ground right now. I do not believe, and I'd have to double check the OCTA freeway project list, that the segment where the Coast to Cleveland connection is located is being expanded or improved in any way by the measure. So OCTA's funding would not be able to be allocated towards that directly, but that doesn't mean that the SCAG Advanced Mitigation Program is out. It could be included. And there is new legislation, actually, SB 790, which does a better job linking California Department of Fish and Wildlife to Caltrans projects doing mitigation for wildlife corridors. So I think there are a couple of options. And the last one I'll mention is that Caltrans is also doing an advanced mitigation program, and they just launched their technical studies of Southern California. So another opportunity to comment on things.
Great. I have something in chat from Ginger Wallace. There are several acres above Mission Hospital with Southern Maritime Chaparral as a candidate site. Does that mean anything to you, Melanie?
Not necessarily, but Ginger, if
Okay.
you want to get me a map and circle the location or an assessor parcel number, I can look it up and see if it is or isn't on the map. And if it's not, then I can add it to my list for updates.
Ginger, did you want to comment on that?
Speaking for Ginger,
Oh, okay,
as
Mike.
the representative, it's the parcel above Mission Hospital, and it's 7 acres, and it's Southern Maritime Chaparral, and it's the southern terminus, really, of the entire Laguna Greenbelt.
Mm.
So it's an important bench for the whole Greenbelt, and it's pretty much virgin area because it's so rugged and inaccessible. So we tried to keep it that way as a community, but it could be up for a good candidate for protecting that whole area.
Perfect.
Because if it is developed, it'll really just chop up the southern terminus of the Greenbelt. So thank you for that, Melanie.
Sure. Get me the information. I can see if it's on the map or needs to be added.
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see I am not a very good typist, and I have messed up the address a little bit on if people wanted to send a check. So I'm just, Melanie, if you'll take a look at what I've typed and make sure that I am I'm correcting it now.
As Gail types, I'd like to make sure everybody knows that the Friends of Harbors, Beaches, and Parks have been around for a long time. You know, I think in the county, they were an independent department, but then they were thrown into public works. So the nonprofit was formed to keep an eye on things and try to protect the environment. And from that time, sitting behind me, our longtime Laguna Canyon Conservancy president, Carolyn Wood, was secretary of Friends, Harbors, and Parks. And so the LCC for many years would make a donation to Friends, Harbors, Beaches, and Parks. And certainly recognizing that Carolyn Wood was on the board there for many years.
She was absolutely one of the earliest. I'll also mention that, you know, Carolyn was not only active in FHBP, but a staunch supporter of innovative things that FHBP was trying. So we always appreciated that cheerleading we got from her.
Right, it seems 16 years you've been around, and
Oh, we're
With-
approaching 25.
really.
1997 is our formation date.
Ah, great.
And as a side note, so the original Parks Department was Harbors, Beaches, and Parks, back when we were, you know, looking at creating an organization. But every time they changed their name, we decided to stick with ours because they've had a lot of name changes. So
okay, I have some more questions. I see there's one in chat from Paul Merritt. In our Laguna Canyon, we appear to have defective wildlife tunnels. Is it too late to correct this error? I'm not sure if Melanie can answer that or not, but.
oh, sure, you can always fix mistakes.
We hope.
And the beauty of it is that we know so much more now than we did even 20 years ago, right? So we know now that deer have a certain height requirement they need in order to feel safe to pass through some tunnel. Reptiles need cover, like rocks and shrubs. Amphibians need water. And so if you know the species you're trying to prepare the corridor for, you can take all of that information in. So the first question I have is who is managing or operating that roadway? And I'm guessing it's Laguna Canyon Road. So go ahead, Mary.
Mary, you have to unmute yourself.
Yep, she's working on it.
Okay, we got it. Just so everyone knows, Laguna Greenbelt with Terry Watt as our consultant has been working with Melanie on these things. And it's not just Laguna Canyon Road. In fact, the new aligned Laguna Canyon Road has 7 major undercrossings, whereas the old one had none, so that's all an improvement. But where we are stymied right now, and we've been talking with Melanie about this, is the 5. The developer of 5 Point is doing an absolutely marvelous job recreating the wildlife corridor through that part of the land. But we run into the 5 interchange there, and that's Caltrans, and we'll be talking with Melanie some more about how do we get Caltrans involved to get us through.
Yep.
So that's a very good question, Paul. Thank you for asking it. And all the other areas need to be looked at too, but many of them do function. We had a little over 2-year camera study program where we went down in all these different tunnels and put cameras in and learned a lot about where the animals, which animals, and where they're going.
Thank you, Mary. So, okay, well, Melanie, we have a few other questions. Perhaps you can help us with some answers. There is concern about the county not accepting responsibility for open space parcels in our immediate area. What do you recommend we try and do about this?
Are they already existing conserved lands, or are they still in private ownership?
Well, I believe that if there's any new parcels, the county's not accepting them. And Jean maybe can correct me that there was a case starting over a year ago where this became known to us that nobody was aware of for open space parcels.
For many years, the city of Laguna Beach would acquire open space parcel with the idea that we would lease it to the county of Orange for $1 a year, that they would manage the property and they would accept liability. And for a couple of years now, they've refused to do so. This includes parcels that have been purchased with money from Proposition 12, which is really upsetting.
So this is one of the identified issues in the 30 by 30 effort, is that the park agencies that we have, whether it's OC Parks or state parks or Cal Fish and Wildlife, nobody's taking land anymore. And so how are we supposed to achieve this goal? Are they going to wholly rely on private land conservancies or city park departments? That's a big question mark at the moment. So normally what I have found to be successful is providing an endowment to come with the property. So it's just like when you remodel your house and expand the room, if you have a housekeeper, your rate's going to increase because you have more space to clean. So there's more to do. But yes, it's frustrating, but my biggest suggestion is find some money to go with it and offer that as an opportunity for OC Parks to have funding to manage it.
Okay.
What Melanie has said is very important. Jean mentioned there are some parcels that were purchased. The city of Laguna Beach holds the title with Prop 12 funds, and the county is refusing, even though they told the Coastal Conservancy they would accept them. But the county is also saying they want to renegotiate the leases for all of the parcels acquired with Prop 12. And so far, everyone is just at a standoff with it. So this is really very critical for us.
Okay. All right. Well, an issue that we have been working on for a long time over and over again is the mapping of blue line streams in this particular area. How can we motivate the city to do this faster? We've asked, council members, it's been campaign, policy, and it's not happening. So any suggestions for us perhaps to motivate the city to do this?
Yeah, I'll just say that the laws around what's required in knowing about blue line streams or protecting them have completely flipped. Under the Trump administration, it was one way. Now under the Biden administration, it's a different way. currently it's more similar to what we would expect, but water quality is the key. And I think when we did polling back in about 2004, 2005, to understand what the community was interested in, water quality was at the top of the list, absolute top. And interestingly, I mean, close to like 80%. And Laguna Beach, that wouldn't surprise me. But you also have to understand who the right messenger is. So we asked that question. And oddly enough, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the top messengers. And the Humane Society, which was also something we didn't anticipate because they really haven't been involved in wild animals or domestic animals. So it was, you know, get some homework done and present your case that way.
Thank you. Well, and then I have a question, and maybe it was a little controversial at the last SCAG meeting regarding the electric company's entrance into the wilderness areas without regard for policy following. Maybe you'd like to tell us, I mean, your group is, you know, part of, you know, the watchdogs for us, all of us. And it's not an easy job, I'm sure.
So I can speak to what happened at on the OCTA Preserve Pacific Horizon in Laguna Beach. And SoCal Edison doing their annual maintenance on the property, they need a 10-foot radius around their poles, went onto this mitigation land and not only created new trails to get to those poles, but then completely eliminated the habitat around the poles. And when it was caught and OCTA figured out who it was, which it was pretty easy to do based on the work that had been done, reached out to SoCal Edison and they said, well, this is just what we do. And the comment was, you have to get permission. This is now mitigation land. And so they are working on an agreement that provides a very narrow scope and easement on the land so that they're not cutting new trails. I mean, it was just walk in and do whatever they want. And then when the question was asked, do you have any other poles on any of the other properties that we own? The response was no. And then lo and behold, like 6 weeks later, guess what? Another property had damage to the habitat because they didn't recognize, I don't know if it's that they couldn't read a map or what the issue was, but they didn't have easements to their poles. And so some fundamental documents have been missing on these preserved lands that not SCAGs, this is how I get in trouble, that's SoCal Edison should have had easements on, but didn't. And so that's being corrected. I can understand their concerns related to wildfires. There's quite a few in Orange County that have started because of power line issues. And this may or may not be controversial, but if they had invested their money more carefully and looking towards the future and maintaining their power lines and poles instead of lining the pockets of their shareholders, then we would be in a very different place. And even to the point of one of my friends' houses would not have burned down in the bonfire. So, you know, there's a lot of correcting to do.
Yep. Constant vigilance, keeping after these people. So we thank you. I have a question. There are several hillside properties in Laguna Canyon that are on the Green Vision map. I'm sure you're aware of them. And how do we find out more detailed information about the potential conservation land parcels in the canyon besides those hillside properties that are on the Green Vision map already, perhaps other potential conservation land parcels?
So I'm not really sure what information folks are interested in. For example, the assessor parcel number, the acreage, the owner's name. But that data is what FHBP purchased from First American Title. So we're allowed to show the map. We're not allowed to give the data behind it. So if you're looking for information, certainly we can have a discussion. I just can't give you the data.
Okay. All right. Well, we can get in touch with you. So
Yes.
I don't know if there's any other questions. Maybe somebody hasn't formulated it in chat yet. But again, I want to repeat that the information, if you want to help the Friends of Harbors, Beaches, and Parks with their mission, and this coalition is so important to us, you can make a donation. And also, Melanie, if somebody had a specific question later to contact you, would you be open to that?
Absolutely. I love what I do. So if somebody wants to talk, we can do
Right,
it.
well,
I see the question here, so I'll go ahead and put in the chat the email address that you can
Okay.
reach me at.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, all right, well then I think we're going to do a wrap, and I want to thank everyone who attended and asked questions. And Melanie, we are ever so grateful. I know I learned a lot this evening. You're a great presenter and a great spokesman for the group. So please contact us whenever we can be of help to you. And then members of LCC, thank you for those that have renewed your membership. Those that haven't, you still have an opportunity to go on the website, of course. It's only $25. Our speaker next month is going to be Mayor Sue Kemp. And that is on April 2nd. Oh no, April 4th, Monday, April 4th. Mayor Sue Kemp is our speaker. And then I want to remind everybody of Arnold Haino's Memorial this coming Saturday. Try and get there at 1:30 Neighborhood Congregational Church. And is there anything I've forgotten? Please tell me. Usually Jean reminds me. No?
Not a
Right.
thing.
Thank you, Melanie. So good to
Let's
see
say-
your wonderful work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is recorded.
Thank
It
you,
will be on
Melanie.
the website.
Melanie, you're wonderful, and FHBP is so fortunate that you've come along to be part of their team. You are fantastic.
Thank you, Harry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great week. Hopefully we'll see you next month and see a lot of you next Saturday. So take care, everybody. Thanks again, Melanie.
Okay.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Thank you.
Hi, Harry.
That was a great meeting. I'm sorry I was late.
Oh, the speaker had to let you in herself.
She did?
Yeah,
Damn.
that's why you get organized here.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.